Hey everybody, welcome to today's session of the Chaos Show titled Virtual Production, Robots, and the Future of Cinematography. Just to introduce myself real quick, I'm Mike Morgan. I've been here at CSU for 7 years. I am over the marketing.
Hi, my name is Phil Ellingson, and I'm the head of Global Strategic Accounts. My job is to work with our partners, our customers, form strategic alliances, and help those partners and customers be successful, give them whatever tools that they need.
So thank you guys. We really appreciate you being here with us today. I just want to encourage you to register for our other sessions. We've got some cool stuff coming up next week.
You bet. Just to give you a quick overview of what we've been doing and what we're doing for the different sessions, we had one just a couple days ago on Monday. We talked about why you're seeing so many robots on set these days. And it was a really cool deep dive into how to control the robot, how to move it, how to create a program. If you want to see how to do that and get some more information, you can view that session. Today we're going to be talking about virtual production. We're going to be doing a deeper dive into what is virtual production, why we're seeing it so much, how it's kind of taking over the industry, if you will. Now, next week on Monday the 7th, we're going to be doing we want you to join us for a live shoot. We're going to be working with some high-speed cinematography, and we're going to be working with one of our partners, 8183 Productions. And then on Thursday of next week, the 10th, we will be having a really cool kind of a reveal of some new products, some new things that we have going on. So it's going to be some really cool stuff on next Thursday.
And you can register for both of those at thechaosshow.com. I'd also like to point out, we've got our team member David. He's on the chat today, so I encourage you to, if you have any questions or any comments, go ahead and throw those in the chat. And he is very knowledgeable. He can answer those questions. And if he feels like there's something that we should address here on camera, then we'll bring him on to ask those questions, and we'll address those. Also, I mentioned I am on the marketing team. So of course, I'm going to throw in a pitch for Instagram. Scan that QR code on screen. It'll take you to our profile. Give us a follow. We've got a lot of amazing partners who are producing some really, really amazing stuff. And we like to repost that. So if you're interested in seeing what our partners are doing with these robots, you can find that on Instagram.
Yeah, and speaking of amazing partners, we're actually going to be joined by one of our amazing partners today, Remedy Films. They are a studio based in the Atlanta area. They have a beautiful, nice LED volume stage with one of our high-speed cinema robots there. They're doing some really cool stuff with virtual production. So we've brought them on today to help us talk a little bit about virtual production. But before we introduce them, I want to talk a little bit about what our topic is today, virtual production. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, kind of an overview of virtual production, what it is. We're going to be talking about how robots fit into that production process. And we're going to talk a little bit about the future of cinematography. Because that's kind of, from what we're seeing, that's the trend that the industry is going, is it's more to, you can do more with it. And we'll get into that a little bit more about how virtual production can help a production with saving time, saving money, and whatnot. So with that being said, let's bring in our favorite guys out in Atlanta, Remedy. We've got Sean and Taylor. How are you guys doing?
Hey, pretty good. How about you?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks for joining us. Why don't you guys give us a quick introduction, tell us about yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Sean. I'm over the tech and innovation here at Remedy. I get to play with all the fun toys here, so being the robot and our LED wall.
And I'm Taylor. I'm the head of production and director of post-production here at Remedy. So I have a background as an editor in After Effects and Premiere and Resolve and all that jazz, and now also oversee a lot of our production, including here in our virtual production studio.
Yeah. A little about Remedy. We kind of focus on commercial and branding content. Then we also own our studio, Form Studios, which we're in today, which we are kind of a high-tech studio where we kind of merge robotics and virtual production with our big screen back here.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you being here with us today.
Absolutely.
Before we jump in, I think we've got kind of a broad audience here. I imagine we've got several people who know a lot about virtual production. We also probably have some people who haven't really ever heard of it. So can you just give us a quick high-level overview and answer the question, what is virtual production?
Yeah, I'll try to keep that pretty simple. So there's two major types. There's XR and there's IC VFX, which is in-camera VFX, which is what we're doing here today. It's basically capturing the final image in camera without any additional post, producing of it. So with that, we use Unreal Engine, which is what you're seeing back behind us. It's a 3D rendering platform that's real time. So basically we can move pretty much anything in the scene, any of the trees, tables, we can change the grass, we can move the sun around. And as the sun moves, all the shadows update real time, reflections update real time. And because it is a 3D environment, as our camera moves around, we get this natural parallax in the scene, which just adds a lot more depth to it and just makes it seem a lot more realistic than if you're just shooting on a flat image or a stock footage photo or something like that.
Awesome. Okay, cool. The other question I have for you real quick as we get started is, at least from my perspective, it seems like this virtual production technology is really taken off and spreading quickly. From your standpoint, is it the same? Do you see the same trend? And if so, why is that?
Yeah, it is getting there. I think it's going to be another 5 years until it's fully accepted. I think right now everybody is still trying to figure out what you can do with it because it is so new. The Mandalorian came out a couple years ago and that kind of kickstarted this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, for us, we've kind of moved most of our productions over to virtual production, mainly just because of the time savings. I mean, we can go from this park scene to, inside of a house within, 30 minutes. The background changes really quick. Our whole entire visual set is on casters, so all this wheels out. We can bring a new set in with, a couch if it is like a interior scene. Then we're up and rolling, where if you're trying to shoot this in physical locations, your location move alone is going to take a few hours, and this we can do in 30 minutes. So just so much time savings with that. Then also weather is another big thing. It can be midwinter and we can have a desert scene in here, or it can be midsummer and we be have a snow falling scene in here. I think a great example of that is we were doing a shoot in July and we had some heat advisory. It was like 100-some degrees outside, but we're inside at 68 degrees in here, and we're shooting. It looked like a neighborhood cul-de-sac scene where we had a full truck in here and all that. So it's just a lot more flexible and comfortable, and you can just move a lot quicker.
Yeah, and the flexibility especially is just one of the biggest benefits, because even just from going shooting on location to in studio, there's so many challenges that you're probably used to because you've been doing this for decades. But once you then transition into shooting in virtual production, you don't realize that, I don't have to deal with that anymore. Even something as simple as getting permits for your locations, because now all you have to do is buy an environment pack or build out your own or buy other assets. You just have to worry about licensing, not so much finding permits. And even location scouting, you can do virtually. You can take director notes and even inspiration images and go and source assets, or again, create your own assets to match exactly to the director's vision. And even just space and access to your gear. I mean, sometimes you may shoot in a tight kitchen and there's just not enough space to get all of your G&E in the scene the way that you envision it. But in a studio, you can create that tight space, but have so much more room to actually play with all of your gear. Same goes with power. Even sometimes just finding power on location can be difficult. But in a studio, you have all the power built in. And then say someone maybe dropped the ball and forgot a piece of gear, but we have our full G&E closet over here. So if we don't have something in the studio, we just walk 50 feet and grab it out of the G&E closet. So the flexibility, even just from being in a studio consistently compared to on location, is one of, if not, the biggest benefit of virtual production.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, what you just described there, it seems like it cuts out so much of the headache of shooting on location, right? It seems really powerful. I guess a couple of things in there that caught my attention. The first one is you're able to shoot on different locations, right? And you can do that all in studio. You can do multiple in a day. Can you maybe just go into that a little bit and talk about? I mean, it looks like you're in a park right now, right? Can you show us a little bit of how that virtual world works?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we are sitting in a park scene right now. I'll switch over here so you can see my monitor and you can see what we're seeing in Unreal Engine. So, even just, prepping for this show, we wanted to create something we haven't done before. And a little park picnic scene is just something that we haven't played around with. So, we started looking around for assets and we found, let me speed up my mouse here so it's a little bit quicker. We sourced this map, which is frankly huge. As you can see, as I twirl around, there is a lot of different aspects in here. I mean, we have, these look like basketball courts. I know there's a soccer field. Yep, there's a soccer field. There's a big lake. I think there are tennis courts. There's multiple playgrounds and restaurants, benches. I mean, anything you can think of, just flying around in this park, you can find. And so obviously we have essentially an entire world. I mean, I don't know exactly what this square mileage would equal to, but the fact that I can go and say, oh, let's go scout at this baseball field down here and see, oh, is this something that we'd like to shoot maybe from this perspective? And then be like, well, no, I actually don't want a baseball field. Instead, I want to go shoot in a little pavilion. And the fact that this takes me, 5 seconds to change my location and get a different view compared to, walking or driving is just, it's just crazy. I mean, the technology here is just almost, it feels unlimited, honestly. Unreal. Haha.
Sean, I think you'd mentioned it earlier, and speaking and kind of panning around, it looked like there was, this perspective that I think you spoke about, and how things can shift differently compared to just a static image. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it seems like that is what really sells it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is what sells it. It's kind of, I mean, honestly, the first time we got this up, it's so cool to see in person. But as you can tell, when we first pulled this project, we have a replica of our studio and our stage in Unreal. And so that way we're able to align our physical camera with a virtual camera. And that makes sure that the perspective is always correct. I mean, same thing, we have our cameras, sensor size loaded into Unreal. We have all of our lenses loaded into Unreal. You can even add lens encoders. So that way it is lined up perfect. And so like on the wall in the wide shot, you can kind of see this kind of square box moving around. And that's called your frustum, which is what your camera is seeing. And so basically the wall only renders out that perspective. And as the camera moves around, you start having all these objects kind of parallax over top of each other.
Am I on? Okay. So that's awesome. I guess if we take a step back here now, we've kind of looked at your virtual world, and which seems very powerful, right? You mentioned you're able to just go on and download that, right? I'm sure there's hundreds of different types of environments, whatever you could want. And as we looked in there, I imagine you tell me if I'm wrong here, but it looks like you basically place your LED wall in the scene to tell Unreal where that is. And I imagine that's one piece of it, right? And then the other piece would be telling it where the camera is. How does that work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing it's constantly growing and evolving. Previously, even with robots, if we want to get tracking data into Unreal, we have to add some kind of external tracker onto the camera. And, with that, once you have all your G&E set up, a lot of times your tracker might get blocked, you start losing signal. Or, with robots, it can move really, really fast. And with a optical-based tracker, it just can't really keep up with the robot's speed. So you can never really go the full speed of the robot. But now Sisu has a direct integration into Unreal. So basically, our robot plugs up into our network. It sends all the tracking data straight into our Unreal Engine, so we won't have to rely on any kind of external tracking systems. And we can move the robot as fast as we want, and the wall keeps up with it.
Cool. Okay, so
Yeah,
you've
as far
got.
as placing
Go ahead, Taylor.
locations, yeah, it's just a matter of finding kind of where you want to shoot, and there are lots of different ways to do it. One of the plugins that we love is called VP Toolkit. It just makes a lot of the stuff that's available in Unreal Engine a lot easier to access. And so one of them is a really handy button that basically just brings your wall to whatever your view is. So when you find a spot that you like, you can then just hit one button and it brings your wall and your camera exactly where you're looking. And then another great thing about just locations and having a big map like this is you can save locations. So for instance, we have our chaos location, which I can hit one button and it loads up our main spot. But before, when we were preparing for this, we were looking at a bunch of different locations, just trying to figure out, hey, what looks best, what sells the best. And so going through, we were looking at another spot close to like a wall and a road. We didn't like that one as much. And then we had this one that was sort of in this little like kind of cul-de-sac-ish environment. But hey, if we want to be on a baseball field, one click, we're on a baseball field. Or if we want to be on top of a roof, which doesn't make any sense, we could be on top of a roof. So it's really great. The locations, especially within Unreal, the matter of clicking buttons, especially if if you prep well, once you get on set, you can load your locations in a matter of literally, I don't know, half a second, whatever that was, which is just incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we kind of talked about you got this virtual world, and then you got to have something to bring it out of that virtual world, or at least get your camera into it, right, to be able to project to that screen. So like you mentioned, you can use an optical sensor, which would track it and feed that data into Unreal. But the benefit of having the robot in there is there's no lag, right? And in CC Lab, it's you basically just turn on the live link, you run your Ethernet cable, and that's about it, right? Yeah, awesome. The next question I wanted to ask you, some people who might not be familiar with virtual production are going to be more familiar with like green screens, and I could see somebody saying, okay, well, I can do that with the green screen. What is your answer to that?
Yeah, I would say probably before we got into this, I wasn't too clear on this either. But yeah, the biggest advantage is, typically you choose your camera and your lens because you like the style and the color of it. And if you're using a green screen, pretty much you still have to cop in the rest of your environment. Really, the only thing that you're keeping in it is probably your subject. Where with an LED wall, you still get all the bokeh. If you're shooting anamorphic, you get all this pretty bokeh color. If you're shooting with something ELF, you like the color of it. Your whole entire scene and image is still all captured in camera, where with green screen most of it's comped in. You can try to copy some of that stylistic characteristics of the lens and camera, but it's just not the same as capturing it all in camera, and that's where the LED walls really shine. And then too, just lighting is a lot easier when you can actually see the image. I can see where my shadows are going, and also real time I can move my sun around and kind of line up my physical lights with my virtual light sources. Talent has a lot better time. I feel like just getting into character and acting when they can actually see the scene that they're living in. Even from the DPs and just seeing the final image just in your monitor, it just adds so much value. Even reflections you get from LED walls that you won't get from a green screen, and not having a green spill. But what's cool too is like if we want, let's say there's one shot where we don't know what we need for this one shot, we can turn our frustum into a green screen that already has tracking marks on the wall. So if we want to do one quick pickup shot, we hit a button, this turns green, and then turn back off and back in our Unreal environment again.
Yeah, and not to mention also just the post savings, because obviously bringing a green screen into post-production, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there because you've lit your subject and you've planned it out kind of what's in your head, but then you have to take that into post and you have to find the assets to match in the background, and then do a lot of compositing to get those things to really sell well. But now you're seeing all of that live on stage. You can make those adjustments while you're here with the DP, with the director. And then when it goes into post, it's just ready. You don't have to do any special effects, any other additional VFX, like you would if it was a green screen.
But I will add real quick. So if you are doing green screen, that's where these robots are amazing, because you can export out a VFX file from the robot. So basically it sends out all the tracking data into a file. You can bring that into After Effects. Now you have all your tracking data. So that way you don't have to deal with any kind of tracking markers on set, or try to use, some kind of
like mocap.
post tracking. You just export out of the robot, and now you can throw in your scene into After Effects, and it all lines up.
That's true.
Another thing you mentioned just now, I haven't really thought a lot about, but you can completely customize your scene, right? You mentioned you can move the sun around. If you don't like where a tree is, right, it looks like it's sticking out of Talon's head, right? You hate that. You can just delete it or just move it over. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, every object we can move around. Sorry, were you saying something?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we can probably, for example, if Taylor wants to move some around for us real quick.
Yeah, I can show you my screen here. So one of the things that we did to set up this environment is we found this location where we kind of had this nice fence area, some sidewalk, there's some nice texturing, but like the trees weren't exactly in the most ideal spot that we wanted, because I wanted to have some shadow but also some light in this. So it's literally as easy as grabbing a tree and scooting it over, and then it's gone. I don't like it, then I can undo it and put it right back. And then even things like just final touches, like little things. So we have a practical lamp that we bought that's in our scene, and the lamp post in our environment didn't quite match. And so I don't know, it took about 10 or 15 minutes and just mocked up a little, covering to match our lamppost that's in our scene, just to help sell the effect even more. And then with that too, decided that we needed more picnic tables. So just added some wood planks and kind of shaped them into a picnic table, and copied that a few times. And that basically created for us just extra layers of texture in set deck. And even back here, I brought in a bench from another part of the scene and a trash can, and found this gazebo in a different part of the map, and just threw a different texture onto the wood and shrinked it down a little bit, just to add extra layers, as well as sort of these rocks. So there's just so much freedom and flexibility to say, oh, I don't like this, and instead of having a whole team of set deck who are running around trying to source materials or whatever it may be, you have one person manning a computer like this, and you can just essentially move around and create exactly what you want to see, nothing less and nothing more.
Very cool. Another thing that I like that you mentioned right there, the LED wall, right, the actual projection in the background seems to be a huge part of it, right? But I love how you've got some practical elements there that also really help sell it, right? Between the lighting and the lamppost, I see you've got a fake tree. Can you talk through some of these other things that you do to help make it look even more real?
Yeah, I mean, lighting and set deck, we actually did a video on YouTube about this recently. It really is what ties all this together. And that's kind of what we try to steer clients into doing first is, maybe let's not use Unreal for your first project. Maybe let's use some like plates, just so we don't get hyper-focused on all you can do in this. Because really the lighting and set deck really just sells it. So yeah, we'll try to blend and match some of the set pieces. We brought in some trees in here just so we have some other physical objects that we can get some parallax off of and more depth off of. And then, lighting is huge. Kind of having our key light source matched up with the sun in Unreal. And just try and match above our shadows. And I think Taylor can speak more into just matching up light levels and all that.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot that helps sell this. The blending the practical and the virtual is the big thing. And so having these physical elements, even like sourcing trees, we went out kind of around our office and across the railroad tracks to find some trees that match what is living in our Unreal world. But then on top of that, once you kind of have those elements and that base, the best thing is just matching the lighting in between the virtual and the physical. So one way we do that is using color checkers. So we can bring in a physical color checker into our environment here with all of our lighting. And then built into Unreal is a virtual color checker. And so what we can do is set these guys up, and I'll walk over here to our Flanders monitor and show you that we can check these things out and bring up false color and basically just test our values against each other. So we can get our whites to match our whites and our blacks to match our blacks. And then looking, as this camera will pan back around Shawnee Boy here, even just looking at picnic tables, looking at the highlights on the picnic tables and the shadows of the picnic tables and the shadow levels of the trees in our background versus the shadow levels in our real environment, such as like Sean's shirt, you can just see that these are matching up really well. And I'll even change back to our main location here so you can see the picnic tables matching a little bit better. There it is. So you can see here, just looking at the highlights of where how the sun is hitting is matching both virtual and physical. And that's one of the best things that sells it. Another thing that really helps is bringing in a reflector ball, because like I said, it is built in to Unreal Engine as a part of their color checker, which I'll bounce to that location one more time that I have saved. It's just a little bit further back from our actual shot. But you can look at this reflector ball and see where your main light source, right here, you see your main light source, where it's hitting on that reflector ball. So when we bring a physical reflector ball into our real environment and look at it from the camera's perspective, we can match up where those light sources are coming from so that we know for sure, like, we are blending the virtual and the physical to the absolute best of our ability.
That's awesome. I think we've asked all our questions. Is there anything else that you guys would like to point out? Any other benefits or anything that you'd like to mention of virtual production?
God, there's a lot. Chad, do you have anything specific?
Well, you guys asked a lot of great questions that was a part of a lot of stuff we were gonna walk through. I'll say I'll show you real fast on my computer screen just how easy it is for changing lighting, especially for like an outdoor scene. So if we want to move the sun around, which is something we are testing out to figure out kind of what is the best option. Let's see if I can do this on a Mac versus a PC. Not that button. There it is. It's just a matter of holding, Command L or Control L, depending on your computer on, and moving your mouse around. And so I can make the sun drop low. I can raise it up to midday. If I drop it low, I can move left or right and basically twirl around which direction that it is going to be hitting. And essentially this is the easiest thing in the world. Just moving your mouse around. And so if we want to be, shooting golden hour for 12 hours or 8 hours a day, we can do that. And we have the flexibility to make that happen and make sure that we have the time to get the shot that we need, which is, it's just, if you had told me this, I don't know, 5 years ago, which I know it was starting then, but it still is just amazing how easy it is to move around and just create whatever you can think of.
Yeah, I think that's a great example is golden hour. I feel like a lot of times people are, trying to cram this quick shoot into this like perfect, hour to 2 hours of like great light where it's with here we get it all day long. And again, we start messing with our physical lights in here to try to match the light source in the virtual world. That's the biggest thing is there's no rain delays or snow delays or anything like that. The weather is always what you want it to be, which is great for big productions because weather can really mess things up.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Absolutely.
I think that's that's a lot of the stuff. I think we've covered a lot.
Okay. Well, let's go to David, who is monitoring the chat. David, do we have any questions that need to be addressed?
I think you've asked so many great questions that we don't have any coming through the chat yet. There's still plenty of time left, though. So.
Awesome. Well, if you do have any questions, go ahead and drop those in. We'll go back to David here in a few minutes and see if there's anything that we need to address. Remedy, team at Remedy, Sean, Taylor, thanks a ton for preparing this demo. Before we kind of transition into this next discussion, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions more specifically about the robot. I know you've had yours for a year and a half or so, but I'm just wondering if there's just like an awesome robot story that you'd like to share. Is there a time that sticks out to you when the robot really shined for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's nice. I love having this robot because I get to brag on it. I get a lot of praise from it. We're on this shoot last February. It was a 2-week shoot down in Tampa. And before, the producer, director, and DP had used another unnamed robot that takes a lot longer to program. And so when I got the schedule, I was basically scheduled for 2 shots a day. And if you worked with a CC robot, that's not a lot because you can fly through shots really, really quick. So I mentioned that to him, and I would say after day 2, we ended up doing almost every single shot on the robot. Even if it wasn't this complex shot, because a lot of shots we were doing were more complex. We're exporting out these VFX files for post-processing, but we ended up doing all of our jib shots. We just want this, quick and easy jib shot. It's so quick to program on the robot. Or if we want to do this dolly shot, we can do that on the robot. Or if the next shot is just a locked off shot.
Sorry, you had a bug on you.
Oh, thank you, man. We're in the park, man. You never know. Or if it's a locked off shot, I can easily just drive the camera to the exact point and shoot it versus, having to bring in a jib or a dolly or sticks. You can just do it all on the robot. And that's really something you can't do with other manufacturers. And it's Sisu software that really makes that possible.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, I get to direct a good bit here at Remedy, and just from a director standpoint, we were doing a fight scene. I guess it was earlier this year or late last year, and I just had this vision of the camera really rotating with basically someone being flipped over someone else's shoulder. And so doing that naturally without a robot, there's basically 3 human elements that go into that. It's 2 talent and a camera operator, and so getting the timing of all 3 of them to be synced to where the camera is rolling with the action of the flip. It's just a lot of elements that go into play. But when you have that on a Sisu, like C20, like we have, instead of a camera operator, that timing is going to be absolutely consistent and is going to be absolutely the same every single take. And you're doing something like a fight scene where your talent are basically going through physical exercise and it's taking a physical toll on them. It's important to get those takes sooner rather than later, because the more they wear out, probably the less accurate, the less good it's going to look, because they are going to be tired. And so when you have that robot doing consistent moves, then it takes 3 human elements down to 2 human elements, and it's just a matter of them trying to sync up with the timing. But because it's consistent, they can nail it faster and sooner. It looks better, and honestly, that's probably one of my favorite shots that I've directed. I'm really, really happy about that, and it wouldn't be possible without our Sisu C20.
No, that's cool. Actually, yeah, first time I saw that shot that you did, that was really cool. So I have one last question before we move over to the next topic as well. So let's rewind back to either just before you got the robot or just after you got the robot. Kind of compare that to right now. What has changed in your perception of, or what has surprised you with the robot then versus now?
Yeah, so before we got our CC robot, probably 5 years ago, I bought this old 1998 welding robot that we put a little cheese plate onto it, strap a camera onto it, but there's no focus control on it. The movements were not smooth at all, and honestly, there's a couple of shoots where I actually died, the night before the shoot, and we're scrambling to get that thing working.
Oh, I had to in post warp stabilize so many shots and take different takes and mesh them together. I mean, there's a lot of work with that robot.
Yeah, so that was kind of our I guess first impression of robotics. But yeah, the CCC20 has just made things so much easier. It can control full phase as target tracking. So I can set a target onto Taylor. It knows where he's in 3D space, and it can basically just move around him. Sisu is constantly putting out new features like the Live Link plugin, which makes it super easy to integrate into Unreal Engine. They now have a great new orbit and arc feature, where before, if you wanted to do this perfect orbit around, let's say, this mug, it was a bit, I don't want to call it janky, but to get it right, you really had to finesse it. It took a bit more time, where now with this built-in orbit feature, within 30 seconds, I can have this perfect orbit around this cup. So yeah, it's just made things so much easier. I'm even doing this presentation today. I mean, the robot is no longer, I guess, a hindrance on set. I think before, people kind of had to work around the robot because the robot would take a bit more time on set, and that's still, I feel like, still the case with some other manufacturers. But with the Sisu robot, honestly, it just fits in with your production so well.
Yeah, I'll say too, just the customer service, I mean, with you guys, Sisu has just been incredible. Obviously, when we built our own janky robot from 1998, our customer service was just Sean trying to figure it out with a big manual. But now, especially just when we first got it, there's so much possibility here. There's so much that you can do with it, and there's a lot to learn. And thankfully, it's really intuitive, so that learning doesn't take very long, especially I think if you have any sort of like background in editing or technology. There's a lot of stuff that's just like super intuitive, which is really great. But for the stuff that like we felt like we couldn't figure out on our own, or we were having trouble just getting it working right, but we knew it was possible, it's rare to find a company that has such great customer service where we can call and they answer on the first call. And that's, I think, always been our experience. This really just like relationship with y'all has just been incredible. It's helped us grow a lot faster in learning how to operate this robot, learning how to take advantage of just all the great features that it has, and it's just been incredible.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, you guys have been incredible partners as well. We're really grateful to have great partners like you guys. So thank you very much for everything. So we've discussed kind of what virtual production is in general, how the robot can kind of fit in with that production. I want to change gears here really quickly, and I want to talk a little bit about the cinematography, where it's been, where it's going, and how does technology fit into that. So to help us with that discussion, we're going to bring on our super secret guest. He's a man known around the world. He's loved by many. He's loved by us. He's loved by you. He's loved by women and men all over the world. He's the one, the only, Brian Altham.
That's quite some introduction to live up to, Phil. So I thank you for that. Am I here? Am I live? I'm assuming that I'm live, and I'm assuming that you can hear me. Not quite sure how to live down that introduction. And let me just tell everyone who I am, because nobody's heard of me, of course. So real quick, I was educated in the UK as an engineer. I moved to Hollywood in the late 80s. I've been part of the Directors Guild now for 30 plus years. And I've seen many of the new technologies being introduced into the industry coming and going. In the early 90s, late 80s, when I first stepped moved into Hollywood, it was, as Jamie and Sean talked about earlier, very much green screen technology. We'd be on the Star Trek sets and doing light green screen. That was high-end technology back then. And then we moved more into the sort of the mid-90s, and Technocranes came out. Some friends of mine from England bought the first Technocrane over to Hollywood, and had that pattern for about 10 years, I think. They've since moved on to LED green stages and shows like The Mandalorian, of course. Then after that, we moved into the sort of Russian arm era and hot heads, or stabilized heads, the Scorpio head, etc., etc. I was involved in the first motion robot Moco shot, brought over by a company from the UK in Hollywood in about 95, 96, I think it was, for Sky TV. And then I started a production company and worked in a lot of different countries around the world, shooting, specializing in car commercials. Moved out of the TV series, started off on Beverly Hills 90210, did some feature films, and then have been more involved in the commercial world. You won't have heard of me, but I'm lucky enough to be dragged around by a lot of names that you will have heard of as their first assistant director these days, and still work in that capacity in the Directors Guild.
Brian, I just want to say thank you. Appreciate it. Loved having you here. Love having you on with us. And I appreciate you kind of giving us that history of technology in cinematography. So it's great to kind of get that insight into what you've experienced and how the technology has changed as we've been shooting over the years. So to kind of take it to the next level, the Jamie and Taylor over at Remedy, what do you guys see as the future of technology integrating with cinematography? So one thing that I was saying, Taylor, I really appreciate what you were talking about. And I was just saying, I was talking about a DP director, VFX expert that I'm working with out in LA. He's done a ton of stuff for Marvel, lots of AAA titles, so he's done a lot. And one thing that he was talking about is if you take a look at where cinematography was back in like the early 2000s, you get incredible camera work. You look at like The Matrix and all the amazing stuff that they were doing. And then we developed this new technology with virtual production and these LED walls, and it was really cool, but because of the lag and because the camera technology wasn't catching up to the virtual environment, the cinematography quality dropped. You could only do small, basic moves to be able to keep up with the virtual environment. And that's why he's so excited to work with us, is because now all of a sudden you have the camera technology using the robot directly linked to the LED wall, that now you can have this cool virtual production and you can get incredible camera work, incredible cinematography all at the same time, merging these two technologies. Is that kind of what you see, the future?
Yeah, I would say this is the first time where I think that technology has surpassed the knowledge, and that's what we're kind of big about right now, is just trying to get just people up to speed on this technology. We're doing this workshop this week. We have another workshop next week with 50 high school students. We're doing a ton of like YouTube content. We're letting people come and shoot spec projects just because people are comfortable shooting on location and they're not comfortable with this yet. So really, we just want to get people in here and get their hands on the technology, just so they understand it and they can then implement that into their own productions.
Yeah, much like anything, there is a learning curve with virtual production, because it is different, especially when you've been doing this for, decades, because you're used to the flexibility of, shooting in a house or shooting on location, where you can, okay, I'm going to, turn camera around and shoot over here now, or I don't like, this angle, I can adjust it and physically see everything. When you get into virtual production, you have those same possibilities, but you just have to think about it differently. So instead of trying to turn around a room, which I'll show you here on my computer screen, and you can also see from our main feed here, is that instead of turning around a room, it's as simple as turning around your virtual camera, where I can just rotate and say, well, now I want to look this way, but now I want to look this way. And if I want to do a little bit of a hero, then I can tilt up. There's all the same capabilities, all the same possibilities. There's actually more, but it's just a matter of learning those things and kind of getting used to just a different way of thinking about it. And like Sean said, one of the things that we're trying to focus on is just education, just because a lot of people don't understand it, and we're inviting DPs and directors to come in and shoot spec stuff in here just so they can get their hands on it and they can test this out, because that's, I think, really what it's going to take.
Yeah, even on the integration side, we have a lot of studios reaching out to us because it is really hard to find information on how to integrate the LED wall, the media servers, the processors, the camera tracking. So we're now actually offering to do full build out and consulting with other studios, where we'll actually do direct sales for all these companies now, come in, integrate the robot, all the camera tracking, the media servers, and that's a kind of new service set that we're offering. It's been really fun to see, and it's great to meet other people in the community that are interested in this technology as well.
Yeah, we're passionate about telling people stories. We know there are a lot of other people out there with the same passion. I think a part of that for us too is we want to help people, get there sooner and faster. And if we can help people get through the learning curve faster than we did, and help kind of ease some of the headaches of like trying to figure this out all on your own, we'd love to be a part of that.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Brian, I kind of like to pose that same question to you. Looking at the future of cinematography, right, and with your experience on how tech has played a role in the progression of the industry over the past years, when you look at the future of cinematography, what do you see?
Yeah, great question. I just wanted to thank sort of Jamie and Sean, for giving us such a great simplistic overview as well of what's going on with where this, the basis of this technology. And from my perspective, it's completely obvious where this is leading us. And ultimately, what I see within the space of the next decade, if not before that, and in fact it's already happening when you look at the shows like Mandalorian and other feature films that are being shot currently. What's going to be happening is like it or not, the reality is that Hollywood productions and content makers are all going to be moving into this environment, and that being an LED volumetric stage. So it's amazing what Sisu has done so quickly to integrate their technology into the Unreal Engine, into the LED volumetric stages, and I'm assuming that that's what Sisu is currently doing as well, is sort of looking to place robots in these stages, right? I see the fact that when you consider, the issues that Sean and Jamie have talked about already, and that's, imagine an environmental location where temperatures are not a factor. I've shot in minus 60 degrees in Canada, northern Canada, in Iceland, in the Arctic, and it sucks. Imagine I go to an air-conditioned, environmentally conditioned stage in Hollywood, and I can still be on that glacier. That happens now. Imagine an environment where rain is not a factor, as the boys said already, where wind is not a factor. I've seen tents being lifted up and blown away in sub-hurricane conditions. Grip brothers tying everything down because the wind is coming in. Imagine an environment where magic hour lasts indefinitely, where crews are not faced to wake up at 2 a.m. in order to make a sunrise shot at 4:30 or 5, where you can have magic hour all day, like Sean and Jamie said. I know for a fact, from first-hand knowledge, that the last movie, Top Gun, was shot mainly in the magic hours at the beginning and the end of the day. And it took a long time to do. Imagine where you can do if, a special effects stuntman can work in environments which is 100% safety with risk, no injury risks. Imagine, like the boys said, that location scouting occurs instantly. And here's a big one. Currently, any company move, no matter what you consider, is sort of a minimum of an hour, and it can often, I've done, jobs where company moves take 6 hours for a day. You do a company move on an LED set with a robot, it takes half a second to load the information and media. So imagine that. And once you consider all of those factors, it's obvious where the technology is going. It's what happened to the Ronin head, which is now taken over in the industry, all the other heads have kindly taken a back seat. The technocrane, there was one technocrane, and now there's hundreds of technocranes globally. There was originally one Russian arm. Now there's more than hundreds of Russian arms globally. You go to any country in the world, you can pick up a Russian arm to do your running footage on cars now. And this is where the LED screens and Unreal Engine is specifically, and the Sisu robots will end up. And I understand that for the purists, it may not be a comfortable narrative that I'm proposing, but it's unavoidable. So everybody's going to be jumping on board, and that's what we're going to be doing in the future. That's where I see this going. I was told just the other month when I was down in South America, working with a two-time winning Oscar director of photography. He said, Brian, in a few more years they won't need directors of photography, and he's referring to this technology. It's quite amazing. Back to you.
Can I just make a quick comment? One comment that you made, Brian, the other day, is that looking at the quality of the footage and the content that people like Remedy are getting with such a small crew is amazing. Like, I think you said 10 years ago, you would have expected this to be a crew of dozens of people, right?
Oh, that's exactly correct. I mean, just seeing Sean and Jamie in their park right now, I mean, less than 5 years ago, reality is for us to do even a small commercial production in that environment, you have a crew of minimum 60 to 70, and I often have crews of 120, 140 people plus per day. And when you see the level and the quality of the content that now companies like Remedy are able to pull off, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's really incredible where the technology goes, and it's moving so quick. And what's amazing is how quickly Sisu have adapted to this world, and it's where it's going. That's what's impressive from my perspective.
Cool. All right.
Actually, I have another question for Remedy. I just wanted to talk about the scalability, right? Your wall, I don't know the exact dimensions, somewhere was that 30 feet by 10 or 12?
34 by 12.
There you go, 34 by 12. Can you just speak to the scalability of this technology?
Yeah, I actually have one of the modules right here. So I refer to LED walls as adult Legos. Basically, all these things, they just interlock with each other. I mean, you can build this thing pretty quick. They interlock, the data and the power passes through. So really can scale this to any size you want to. Again, ours is 34 by 12 because we're kind of doing more commercial and branded content. If you want to do a feature film, you probably want something a bit bigger. Ours is smaller too, just so we can keep the day rate more in range of where your everyday production can afford it. But yeah, it's adult Lego, so you build it however big you want to.
Yeah, I mean, you could do something as small as an 8 foot by 8 foot for a photo booth for a live event. I mean, if you've seen any of the BTS of the Batman, I mean, they have literally a stage that just is ginormous that wraps around, and they have multiple ceilings, and there's so many benefits to all of that. But you can create even multiple levels, multiple essentially big TVs, if you want to say it that way. They can create different reflections, and but then you also can do something like we have that's sort of a minimal size for like commercial branded content. And so because there are just so many small panels, you can make it whatever size you want, just depending on, if you want to be more budget friendly or less budget friendly, and just the size and scale of the production that you need.
Brian, you looked like you might have had a
Hey.
comment on that.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating what you're talking about, because I was just thinking, only about maybe 10 years ago, we did this Coldplay music video at the time. I think the track was Speed of Sound. And at the time, we used an LED wall that was the largest wall in the world. And now I'm basically looking at Remedy Films wall, and I'm like, that just already blown it away. And it's just an example of how fast the technology is moving in that field. That was my only comment.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's check in with David. I believe we've had a question or two come in.
Yeah, we've actually had 6 or 7 come in. So, if you're okay with me throwing a 3-parter at you, the first series of questions came from Gary. And he asked, what's your favorite virtual location? What's the most expensive virtual location that we've seen? And how much did it cost?
Talking to Remedy here.
Yeah, they kind of range. Some of them can be 60 to $100, I'd say on average. You can buy these massive environments, like replicas of these massive national parks. Those could be $600 because I feel like the tree is a lot more realistic in those. A lot of the cost goes if you want something custom built. And that's kind of the thing right now, is trying to find people that are building these worlds that are also into film. A lot of these environments that you're buying that are pre-made or more designed for video games, and so not ultra realistic like this one right here. Yeah, I'd say on average $100-$200 per environment is what we're kind of spending it on, unless we have some build environment, and then it might be under 10 grand for an environment.
Yeah,
it depends on what we need.
That's a portion that I think is starting to catch up more and more. But because Unreal Engine originally is a game platform, a lot of stuff that is out there is not like photorealistic. And so that can be one of the challenges like today, is finding assets, because you want it to be like a stock footage. Long time ago, stock footage wasn't really a thing. And then there was one website, and then there were 50 websites, and now you can find stock footage, basically anywhere. And we're at the beginning part of that, where the Unreal Engine marketplace is starting to fill up more and more with like photorealistic environments and worlds that you can purchase. And then you're just finding more and more 3D artists that are, moving, or not necessarily moving, but they're starting to do more in Unreal Engine, and not just in like Cinema 4D or Houdini or any of the other like kind of 3D modeling programs. And so that's going to be one area that I think, as Brian is saying, like it's just going to exponentially just explode, where all of a sudden there's going to be lots of websites. I think assets are going to probably peak in price, and then as the market floods with more and more people who are essentially creating these worlds to sell to virtual production, it's going to flatten back down and hopefully be a lot more affordable for kind of everyone across the board.
And do you have a favorite? So Taylor,
I have a favorite, Mike.
Oh, all right. Let's hear it, Brian.
My favorite is the starship that Sisu used at Cinegear this year. And if you go onto the social media websites, you can see us fighting on that starship all the time.
That was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, sorry. Our favorite location is actually one of the first shoots we ever did in here. It was a winter wonderland for this music video. We're actually about to shoot something very similar here in 2 weeks for another music video. But yeah, we had these real trees in here. We had snow cover on the ground, and the snow machine. It's crazy how well that just tied the two environments together. We just blew a little haze in here, had the snow falling. And I mean, it blended really well. What we did is we found the Christmas trees. This was actually an environment that we custom created. And then we matched all the trees in the virtual world with our physical trees here. And with the size of our wall between each shot, if we had a different angle, we just shuffle those trees around. We moved the virtual background to another location and it looked like we were in a totally different spot. And I think we had 6 to 8 real trees on set. and that was really the only practical, that International our snow machine, and it just sold really, really well. I think it's still one of my favorite shoots in here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Very cool. David, what other questions do we have?
Yeah, so Agia Visuals asked or stated, "Hey guys, thank you for the presentation. Can you talk about resources and or websites on how to get started in virtual production?"
Yeah, so we actually just worked with, I mean, we have some content on our website. It's more just reviews, or on our YouTube channel, more overviews about verse production. But we work with a guy named Ian Fursa, and we just shot a ton of content on setting up your Unreal Engine, setting up your in-display config, setting up switchboard, which is how we're projecting onto the wall. I want to say his videos are coming out in December. But yeah, if you look up Ian Fursa on YouTube or Remedy Films on YouTube, we're continuing to put out more and more content.
Yeah, that's one of our goals, especially for next year, is to create more content so that people can find the stuff more easily. Just because it is hard to find the knowledge and find helpful videos that people are talking about, big overviews, but also the details of all the little things that go into setting up Unreal Engine so that you can display it here, and even in going into details of building walls. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of knowledge that we have gained in the past year and a half that we've been doing this, and we hope that in 2023 that we can put out a lot more YouTube videos that can be a lot helpful for that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is we have people connect with us on Instagram constantly. That's one thing. The community is amazing around virtual production. So yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me, Remedy, Form Studios, and yeah, I love to chat and kind of nerd out about all this technology.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. David, anything else?
Yeah, we're about halfway through. So they also asked,
sorry, can you
what's
guys
the
turn your
highest
volume
frame
up?
rate
We
you
can
can
barely
shoot?
hear you.
And then we've got a couple more questions. Pierre came in with one, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Can you repeat that?
So what's the highest frame rate you can shoot?
Yeah, we kind of try to stay 120 and below. If we're working in Unreal, a lot of that is you need the wall to be able to render out this scene at that frame rate, and it's really 60 frames is kind of where we stay. And also, when we're working with Unreal Engine, we want to be gen locked, because you want the Unreal Engine to be producing the frame at the same time the wall is displaying the frame, at the same time camera tracking is updating the frame, at the same time your camera is capturing that frame. And so most gen-lock systems, 60 frames is kind of like that peak. So typically we stay at 60 or below. We have done a project where we went, I think we shot closer to 600 or so. You're going to get a ton of flicker, but you can kind of do some deflicker. I wouldn't recommend that all the time, but yeah, 120, 60 is really I would say the safest if you want to be fully gen locked, and know it's going to look right.
Yeah. So Pierre asks, "Hi, designing such an environment can take so much time. Is it affordable time-wise and money-wise to make one?"
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's Unreal Engine. It's changed a lot even since we got into it a year and a half ago. I mean, you could build this park scene very quickly. You can select, let's say we want 4 different types of trees. We select that. We can make our brush, our radius, like very big, and we just say, hey, how dense do we want these trees to be? And I could click, and I could generate all these trees. I mean, pretty quickly. There's just so many assets now on the store. Even to these pre-made packs, and buy a pre-made pack and kind of customize it to fit our production.
And even Unreal Engine has Quixel built into it, which has a lot of like surfaces and textures, and even like mega scans of real objects. And that library, I think, is going to be one of the biggest things that helps Unreal Engine and virtual production explode, because as they add more and more stuff, it makes it just easier to create from scratch. But also, I mean, there's so much like cost offsetting between, say, virtual production and like shooting on location, because you're not having to pay a location fee, right? So you can pour that money into a 3D artist who's going to create something totally custom for you. And there's like, you're not paying for permits, and that's more money that you can spend elsewhere. You may be able to cut down on, like Brian was saying, your company moves, and that's saving you time for your crew and how many days you're shooting. So there's a lot of, I think, offsetting once you get into virtual production where you're saving money in other areas, so you now can't afford to pour money, say, into a custom environment, or you have the time now to spend to create your own.
Any other questions, David?
Yeah, so I've got one very similar to the question about resources and websites to get started. It's a little bit more broad, so maybe it's worth circling back to, but how do I get into virtual production, and where should I begin?
Yeah, so what's great is you can use a TV at your house, even a projector. Ian first, he has a projector set up in his house, and you can set up in display. You can set up camera tracking in your house. When we got started with camera tracking, we had a little Vive tracker, which was a few $100 or something like that. You have to do some rigging to make it work. But yeah, you can use a TV at your house within display. You can use projections.
You can hook up a little DSLR and use that as a feed. You don't have to get fancy with it to really get going.
Yeah, I feel like YouTube is always the best spot to find tutorials on how to get all this stuff going.
Or I'll give you Sean's phone number and you can call him.
Awesome. We are running short on time here. So let me just ask you one final question. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So my question is, for all the viewers out here, what's the takeaway? So we've talked about, we're still kind of in the beginning stages of virtual production. There's still a lot of growth to happen. And we've kind of talked about where we think it's going. How do I, as a filmmaker, stay relevant? What advice do you have? Let's start with Brian here. What advice do you have for our viewers?
Well, I think that the advice is almost self-explanatory. If you've listened to this last this tutorial, one has to delve into the virtual world, and one has to expect to find ourselves on LED screen stages in the very, very near future. And what Remedy are doing, what Sean and Taylor and Jamie behind the camera are doing is fantastic, and it's exactly where everyone and the whole cinema film business is going, content making business is going. And I love the comment about the TV screen and projector at home too, guys, because I see that as really relevant in the near future to TikTok content makers, IG makers, etc. I see one being able to use their big screen TV, their 90-inch screen TV, exactly in the same scenario or way that you're using your LED wall behind you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And then Remedy, do you have any advice for any of the viewers?
Yeah, I would totally agree with everything that Brian just said. I would say, just like anything that you want to get into, if you're passionate about it, you have to find a way to go out and do it. And that's one of the things that I think we mentioned earlier is we're trying to invite people in here to come and shoot spec stuff with us. It's not a project for one of our clients. It's not anything that we're spending money, making money on. It's just something that we can do to try something new. And getting other people here hands-on is just a big part of that. And so, if you want a new skill set, and people aren't going to pay you for something you haven't done before, so you have to go out and get some experience basically for free, so that you then can say, all right, I know how to do this. So even if you're not, close to us, there might be other virtual production stages around. And I would say, piece of advice is reach out to them and say, hey, can I come check it out? Can I, I'm a DP. Can I DP a project for you guys for free? And just get that experience, because once you have it, you'll be off to the races, and that's how you'll stay relevant and even ahead of the game.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Taylor, because that's something that we're seeing in the industry, I just want to kind of maybe just close with this, is education is the key, I think, right now. Because it's new technology, not a whole lot of people know the capabilities or just the breadth and depth of what you can do with this technology. And so that's why we're actually working with a production studio and a VFX studio out in LA to host an event for the DGA and the PGA, so that way we can educate these. So there's, I mean, Academy Award winning directors and DPs that don't understand this technology. And so we're trying to help educate people as much as we can about what you can do. They know that it's out there, but they just don't understand exactly how powerful it is. So we're trying to put on a big event out in LA to help showcase how cool this technology is and what all it can do. Because learning about it, and especially if you're a young filmmaker, you know, you can come out of the gates a lot further ahead than some of these people that have been around for a lot longer if you start now to really understand the technology. And like you said, reaching out to you guys at Remedy is a good place to kind of start.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Sean, Taylor, Brian, before, yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Also, I might suggest anybody that's seriously interested, just contact Sisu directly. You have great tutorials available. I know they can get hold of you, Mike, and just start researching it online on the Sisu website itself will be, in my humble opinion, a great starting point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we second that for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Brian, Taylor, Sean, thank you so much for joining us on this session. Let's go ahead and close out. Before we do, again, I just want to invite you to follow us on Instagram, scan that QR code, and also just remind you that we've got some cool sessions coming up next week, Monday and Thursday. So we invite you to go to thechaosshow.com, register for those.
Yeah, and reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you're interested in a robot or to understand or learn more about our technology, we do sell these robots. We don't just make them, we sell. We also rent them. So if you have just a specific shoot that you want to use our robot for, we have partners all over the world that we can put you in touch with. So if you're interested in purchasing or renting a robot, or even just being one of our operators. We're doing training sessions right now where we're training people up to become operators. So if you're interested in either purchasing, renting, or becoming an operator, go to our website, sisucinemarobotics.com. At the bottom of the website, there is a contact us form. Just fill that out and we'll get in touch with you guys.
Thanks for joining, guys. We'll see you
Appreciate
next
it.
week.